practice worksheet. The pattern practice worksheet goes with the non-objective drawing that we're going to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. And for now, I'm just going to leave that staple because I don't have my staple remover. What I want you to do to practice is first complete the patterns in the correct boxes. So you're going to create 2 organic patterns, 2 geometric patterns, 2 animal patterns, and 3 choice patterns. This is to give you some practice at creating different patterns and rendering them with pencil when you're looking at something real. One of the things you can do if you're trying to get an example, for instance, of something bumpy, I might take something bumpy, set my paper over it, and rub it very lightly with my pencil or a crayon, and that'll show me what the texture looks like when it's actually on paper, and then I can trace it. Another thing that you could do is if you have access to your computer, you could go ahead and print off a pattern on paper, and you can trace it. Now, there are 2 different ways to do that. One of them is to take your paper and kind of, if this is my pattern, if I wanted to trace the zebra pattern, I would have a piece of paper with the zebra pattern on it and tape it to a really bright window and then put my paper over it, and I'll be able to see it from the back. The darker or closer to black ink that you have, the easier it will be to transfer. You also might find that some of your animal patterns are also organic. Once you've completed the pattern practice, I want you to move on to going ahead and creating the actual non-objective design. So non-objective just means that it doesn't really look like anything. It's more of a modern style. So when we think about Mondrian, who had boogie nights and a bunch of squares, or we think about Jackson Pollock, who liked to splatter the paint, they're kind of more non-objective. They're not really trying to make something that looks like something else. They're just creating. And we're gonna do something similar with pattern. So one thing I want you to do first is mark off a border. So if you've got your ruler, rather than measuring, you can actually just set your ruler along the side and very carefully kind of draw a line down, because what we're going to do is we're going to mark off what we're doing. So we're giving ourselves an automatic border. So I'm going to turn this paper rather than try to tweak my arm. And I talk about this a lot, where if you need to move the paper to do something, then do that. Don't try to draw a line over here. I'm right-handed, so drawing a line this way, it's going to be harder to hold this. It's much easier for me to put it down here at the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. So I want you guys to move it to where it's the easiest. So do it lightly the first time, and then you can come in with your eraser and you can erase out those lines. Okay. So now I can come in with my Sharpie and go over my lines. So I just put my ruler back in place, and I'm going to start at the corner and work my way down and kind of come up, and then I'm going to come in from the other corner. This way I get a nice strong line. You can't see it so well because my Sharpie's running out of ink. But I want you to do that, and you're going to end up with a nice bold line all the way around. If you do not have one of these super thin Sharpies, just use a regular Sharpie. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide this so that we end up with 6 different spaces. So I think it looks nicer when your lines are more organic. And I want to think about how I'm going to break this space up, because I want to break it up into 6 spaces. They don't have to be equal. It's not like a grid. It's more flowing. So I'm just going to put kind of a mark in here. There's one. There's another. There's not a set number of lines per se. It's more you just want to wind up with 6 spaces. You also want to make sure that you don't wind up with one that's like super tiny. You want to kind of make them even. So I'm gonna come in from this corner. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I divide this one now, okay. And I kind of like that. This is a little bit longer, so I'm trying to decide, do I want to add just a little bit more? If I add another line to divide up this space, it's going to look a little different. So there's another thing that I can try. I can turn my paper and see, do I like it better this way or this way now that I got the lines? Or up here. I kind of like it with this down here, but I also like it like this. I think I'm going to do it this way. So now that I've got the direction that I want to go, I can start adding in my patterns. So we need to have a random pattern. So I'm going to write that in here. I'm really writing this in here so that you guys know what you're doing, but you put your random pattern anywhere. A geometric pattern. I want an animal pattern. Let's see, I want an organic, and then you have a choice. Okay, be whatever pattern you want. You can repeat something. So now that I've got this mapped out, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in my patterns. So for my organic pattern, I really wanna do something that's like a wave pattern. So I'm gonna come in, and I might have an example I found online that I like, or I can completely make this up. Again, I'm gonna turn, so the way that I hold my pencil is like this, and for my wrist, I typically turn things, that way I'm not curving. How you hold your pencil is very important. If you hold your pencil like this, it's much harder to control the tip. When you hold it this way, it's kind of flowy, and we want it like that. It also helps you not push so hard. Your pencil grip, you might have it differently. There might be reasons why you hold it this way. Another way you can hold it is like this. That also helps you flow better, or use your finger underneath as a support. What you want to do though is try not to push real hard, okay? A lot of people push really hard when they write. You want to try to do it softly, that way if you make a mistake, you can erase. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my wave. And again, you know, I'm creating a pattern, so I want to try to keep my waves all the same width. Like I'm trying to evenly space them across, so even though it's rather organic, there's still a flow to it. I'm creating that pattern. So I'm going to go all the way across. And remember, I'm going to add color to this. So I'm going to keep going. And I noticed I kind of drooped off there at the end, so I'm going to redo this one. And you're going to find you do that a lot. Okay, because right now, I talk about this a lot too, about how your neatness, you might have heard your elementary or middle school teacher talking about how neatness counts. It really does. If you have a really messy, sketchy thing, but it's supposed to be that way, that's one thing. But when you're creating something like this, and you're creating a pattern, you want it to be kind of neat. So I'm actually just gonna create it as if that line wasn't there, and then erase this out. That way I get a nice clean edge, but I also get a nice size. I've kind of drooped off. One of the things I can do to make this better, so I'm going to show you there's a difference between this one. I'm actually going to measure in here. And I talk a lot about measuring, but it makes a big difference. So I'm going to go at the 1/2 inch mark. I like 1/2 inch marks. I think they're a nice, good spacing. Okay, and I'm going to go across this way, and I'm going to draw a line just super faintly, so that I know the top, excuse me, of each of my waves has to hit that line. So I'm going to come in. And I want you to see how much nicer my waves look when I measure. So right now, I'm not trying to, I'm freehand drawing, but I really want this, okay, to look nice. So if you notice the difference, I'm gonna kind of pull this up here. This is the one that I measured, and these are the ones that I didn't. And the ones that I didn't don't look as nice. So again, I'm gonna put a line in here. Okay, and do another one. And I kind of want my waves, they're kind of coming behind each other. I'd really like them to be more like where this wave is, there's a hole. But if I do this, I have to make sure I do this for the whole thing. It's kind of getting a little hard. I'm gonna erase out my organic word. And again, I wrote so lightly that it erases really easily. These rubber erasers are great with pencil. And I'm using a B pencil so that I can't, even if I'm heavy-handed, I can't push real hard. I'm kind of bringing my, like up here, I didn't bring them down as far. That's another thing, like if I go up to the top and down to the bottom, I didn't do that here. So I'm gonna, I don't like this. I know, I just made this and I'm erasing it. This is what happens. And I want you guys to do that too. If you notice you don't like something or it's not right, erase it and fix it. Don't just leave it. Don't say, oh, it's all right, it's fine, it's good enough. Let's see, I got these about 1/2 inch. We want to fix it so we can make it look good. When you guys are making these, okay, Design Arts is an entry-level class and we're learning and we're experimenting, but also I want you to make something that like has the potential you would keep it, like you would want to give it as a gift or you would hang it. We call it wow art. It's so magnificent and wonderful, like maybe you could sell it. Now you might be thinking, there's no way that's going to happen. And it might not, you never know. But make something you're proud of. Make something your parents or your guardians are proud of. Make something that you're proud of. Whenever you do something, do it your best. And if it's not your best the first time, just do it over and over again until you get it there. So I just erased all my lines, and that's okay, because that was what, like 2 minutes worth of work? I'd rather erase it now and have it be 2 minutes worth of work than go all the way through this process and realize at the end, you know, I've colored it wrong and I gotta erase that. So I'm gonna go back through and redo these sections, and I'm gonna put my wave all the way at the top here, and then bring it all the way to the bottom. All the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. And I can come back and individually fix any of my waves if I need to. And I'm even kind of pretending through here so that as I get to this point, I can erase it, but it still looks like it's supposed to. So even here, I'm starting on the other one because I really like the way it looks when these waves come up at the top. And the more I make these, the more uniform they'll get. And again, if you're not comfortable, find a wave pattern online. Even if you have to use your phone, if there's a way for you to set your phone screen, it's bright enough that I could, I'm videoing on my phone, but if I set my phone under here with a wave pattern and it was set, I could trace it as long as I'm very careful not to push hard on the screen. And again, you can trace a pattern from a book. If you go to the library, you'll find lots of books on pattern. You can trace a pattern from another piece of paper. You can trace it from the internet. You can hold it up to your, any kind of screen. Any kind of paper, again, you hold up to the window and you can trace it that way. So I think these look a lot better, a lot more uniform. So again, I'm just coming through with my pattern. And I have like a sketch-like quality. It's not perfect yet. Once I get it how I like it, which see, I think that looks much better. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna carefully erase out that line that I put in, because remember, I did them real light. Now, if I hold this up real close, you can still kind of see them, but from far away you can't. And this is only, I don't know, let me see how many inches this is, maybe 18 inches or something. And that's fine, because when you add color to this, you're not going to see it. Then I'm going to come back through, and now I can go in and make it a little bit more perfect, because I'm kind of, remember I have this line here. if you find that you're shaky, then do little sketches, because you can control your shake if your hand is shaky through little sketch quality lines like that, okay? So if you're not real confident in the stroke, which is, you know, when you're putting your pencil down, do it in smaller ones. Like you'll notice on these curves, I'm kind of doing it in smaller bursts, because even though I've been drawing for a really long time, you know, my hand isn't always that steady. You can also put your hand down on the page. Like the more surface area of your arm that you have down to support your hand, the better the stroke is going to be. You're going to have more support, so you have more, your fingers actually end up having more control. And if you squeeze real tight, you lose control. So again, you want to kind of make sure you're not squeezing real tight. Make sure it's kind of loose. You know, if I'm not getting dark enough, then I'm going to switch to a different pencil. So for instance, here's a 4B pencil. That was a B. All right. I'm already getting a darker line. It's the same, and I'm not having to push as hard. So you want to go into here. I can get it the way I want it. Make sure my curves are better. If I make a mistake, I'm going to erase that out. Fix it as I'm going. And I would continue this through the whole one. You can do this a couple different ways. I would suggest drawing in all your patterns first and then going back and adding color. And remember, you can use the watercolors or you can use color pencil for this project. It doesn't matter. You can do some colored pencil, some watercolor. Just be mindful of your color scheme because that plays a big part in the overall design. So I've got this. So now I'm going to move on to geometric. So one thing I could do for my geometric pattern is trace something. So if I had, say, a coin, I could trace circles all the way across. But I kind of want this to be more nature and themed. Like I have waves, and if I really wanted to, I could be like, you know what? I want to make this ocean themed. That's something that can help tie this all together, is theming it. So there's a couple different ways that I could go with this. You have starfish, you have sand dollars. I could do stars over here. Which actually, I'm trying to think how I want to do that. Like for animal, I could do fish scales. So if I had stars, if I had fish scales, maybe here I do, we looked at examples on that pattern presentation and they had little teeny tiny ones and there were bunches of them. I could do that here. I could do seagrass down here. I could do bubbles. In fact, I like bubbles. I think I'm going to do bubbles over here. So this is my geometric. So I'm going to have some large bubbles and some small ones. Now I'm freehand drawing my circles. You might use a tool. So I'm going to look for my tool real quick. I have it over here. Don't. You can actually buy, they sell them, it's a big square and it has lots of teeny tiny little circles cut out of it. I forget what it's called, but they use them in math all the time. I could trace coins, but I'm gonna I'm just filling them in. And I am gonna vary my size on this. So I want some to look like they're in front of the others. I want some to be big. I'm going to make sure that in the corners here I have some things coming out of it. You don't want things to just be in this space or else this looks like a frame. We want it to look like, you know, like whatever my waves are here, they are either in front or behind. So in this case, you know, I'm not really sure which, but I have another bubble there. One really big one right here, kind of coming off. not really thinking about, like, when I do these edges, I feel like I need something here, but I'm not sure what yet. So I'm going to think about that for a second. And then, yeah, I'll just put in here. So there's my bubbles. So I'm going to come through and erase out this extra part. And I'm going to erase so that my little bubbles are going to be in front. I think it looks nice when little bubbles are in front. They could be behind. Actually, maybe I'll make this one behind so you can see the difference. This one's in front. Let's see. I could even put in some really teeny tiny ones if I want to fill the space. Maybe when I do these, I'll do groups of 3 or 2. And there we go. So now I've got a geometric pattern because I'm using nothing but geometric shapes. It's still rather organic though because of what I picked. There's kind of a fine line between organic and geometric when you get into circles. So now I would just keep going. And again, you know, maybe I'd pick fish scales here. I could do a bunch of random little objects here or something else. But because I've decided to stick with an ocean theme on this, it's gonna tie it all together no matter what. And even with my colors, I think I'm gonna stick to blues and greens and, you know, a very analogous color scheme or even monochromatic. Although, I don't know, I might change my mind. I want you guys to go through and fill in your patterns first, okay? Do all your patterns, and when you're done with your pattern, I want you to email it to me because before you add any color, I wanna make sure your patterns are good. So this is where I might notice like something's off, and when you take the picture, you're gonna submit it to me through Google Slides or through email. I'm gonna be able to give you feedback right away, and then you can fix it before you move on. The next step will actually be adding color, and I'll show you that in the next video.